Hey there, Chipmunks! Welcome to the AMP Cycling Ride Review Series. I'm your host, Angry Chipmunk, and today we're in Japan, taking on the Cape Tappi ride. This route is available on Rouvy, so let's get right to it. This is a moderate length route at 34.34 kilometers long, with a decent amount of elevation gain at 741 meters. The whole ride averages just 2%, but will max out at an impressive 16%. About 60% of the elevation gain is contained within one large hill, and the rest of it is spread pretty evenly throughout. The only included segment is until about 20 kilometers into the route. Up to that point, you'll see several smaller hills. They are mostly only a few hundred meters long, with one at about 1 kilometer. The gradients stay mostly around 7 to 8%, with the shortest and steepest of around 10%. There's nothing very taxing about these hills, and pushing up them at speed is not a problem at all. The only segment is Kodamari Climb. It's at the 20 kilometer mark, is just under 7 kilometers long, with 469 meters of elevation gain, averaging 6.7% and peaking at 16%. Strava considers this one to be a Cat 2 climb. The first 1.6 kilometers have a bit of up and down before it settles into a nice steady climb for the remainder. The darker red sections here are mostly above 10%, with the lighter orange staying around the 7 to 9% range. There are a few shorter respites in the 5 to 6% range, but they are rather spaced out during the climb. This isn't an overwhelmingly tough climb, especially as the first 20 kilometers are pretty easy. So if you're wanting to push for a good time, this is a good choice of segment to try for. Following the climb is a very fast and lengthy downhill, which is great for a bit of recovery. There's one small pinch of a climb just before the end, which maxes out around 12%, but it is extremely short at only around 200 meters or so. So if you're coming in hot as Rouvy will allow, it will hardly register for you. There's just a few hundred meters to the end of the route from there. For this ride, you can get away with a shorter warm-up and cool-down if you use part of the route for both. There's not much in the way of positive gradient until about 4 kilometers into the ride, so plenty of time to get nice and warm. If you want to push it a bit harder from the start, warm up a bit more first. Either way, I'd say you'd want at least 5 minutes on either end, but don't need much more than that if you're not planning to take off like a puggy attack. With that big downhill at the end of the route, you can also get away with a shorter cooldown. Still get a couple of minutes, but you don't need anything too extreme. And as always, I recommend pre-fueling your rides and including plenty of protein with that. If you've pre-fueled, you shouldn't need to fuel again until you're coming up on that climb. I would say to aim for more faster acting carbs on this one so as not to overfuel the ride. There's not much route following the crest of the hill, so no real chance to work off any carbs you've eaten if you've eaten too many. If you can't pre-fuel, have 15 to 20 grams somewhere around 10 kilometers in. That should be enough for the climb and the end of the route. Now, the view on this ride is amazing. It's split between following along the coast and a bit inland. The craziest thing about this ride is that once you go over the large climb, the weather seems to change drastically. It's beautiful and sunny until the bottom of the descent, where suddenly you're riding through low-hanging clouds. It's incredible. The ocean views are just spectacular. Perfect blue sky, deep blue ocean, dark green hills, quaint seaside villages. It's peaceful and gorgeous. I made a pretty decent push on this one and completed this route in just under 1.5 hours on 100% difficulty emulation. With the ability to shorten both the warm-up and cool-down, I would suggest a budget anywhere from 1 hour if you're fast to 2 hours if you want a more leisurely ride. Overall, this is an amazing route that I would definitely recommend, especially if you're looking for a good transitionary route. The climb is not overwhelmingly difficult and is therefore very well suited to someone who wants something just that little bit harder. If you're already a climbing pro, this is still a beautiful route with enough elevation gain to keep things interesting. For this route, I give a 5 out of 5. It's a perfect mix of coastal, inland, and Jurassic Park scenes. There's not much in the way of other traffic to be very distracting, and it adds a very immersive feel to this one. For the climb, 4 out of 5. It's not overly difficult, but it's still a very good challenge with some decent gradients. It's either an advantage that you get such a long warm-up to the climb, or disadvantage that you've done 20 kilometers before getting to it. I enjoyed this aspect, but if you're transitioning to more difficult climbs, maybe don't push too hard before you get there. For the views, 5 out of 5. Absolutely stunning. Really nothing at all to complain about on this one. And overall, 5 out of 5. Definitely put this one in your ride queue, even if it's just to enjoy the serene beauty of Japan. Well, that's it for this review, so thanks for watching, Chipmunks. Let me know what you think of the Cape Tappi route when you complete it. Did you enjoy the view as much as I did? I'll leave you to finish the rest of the ride, and I'll see you next week for another review. Until then, ride on, Chipmunks, ride on.